wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose.
In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you. In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
to protect your soul. but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. I don't know what you want. Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say you're on the run to the other side. My love, you say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose.
I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause
So last week I sat down with the Labour leader of Basildon Council, and this week I'm sitting down with the same man again who is, well, no longer the leader. What was supposed to be an interview last week to demonstrate how things were going to improve for the borough, well, the public had different ideas, and I figured it would be good, despite the abuse that I've been given online, despite the fact that everyone thinks I'm a turncoat for suggesting we vote for building and regeneration and a pragmatic approach to our town. Well, I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'm back again. Gavin, good afternoon. Or is it a good afternoon? I don't know. You tell me.
It's always a good afternoon, Charlie.
Is it? Is that because you're with me? Or?
Always.
Yeah, that's
Always.
it.
Yeah.
So,
Worst things can happen to you in life than losing an election.
well, you've lost a few, so tell me what that's like.
Technically, I've never lost the Basildon Council election, but we were thrown out last week. So, yeah, I mean, look, it was a very, very bruising night. I can't lie to you. But I do also have to be honest, I saw it coming.
Yeah, everyone did.
I think you didn't have to be a political genius and have degrees in politics to see that Labour were going to struggle in a town like Basildon last Thursday. I think, you know, from my perspective, I think the moment that the government U-turned on putting the elections back on, the public felt like they'd been played. I think, you know, I stand by. There were very, very good reasons why the government was pursuing that policy, but it didn't back itself, and it U-turned on itself. And the moment that it did that, really and truly, it just put targets on the backs of every Labour councillor and candidate in the country, and we were there to be fired at, and we were. So that was a problem. And look, you also, elections teach you things, right? And I have made it a referendum on the regeneration of Basildon Town Centre, And I have to accept that I didn't make that case strongly enough. Not enough people bought into that. Not enough people were willing to say that the progress they were seeing locally outweighed any dissatisfaction or disapproval they may have with what Labour were doing nationally. And I have to take my medicine on that, and I have to accept that when it comes to regeneration and when it comes to Basildon changing its fate and fortune, maybe some things are just not meant to be.
I wouldn't take such a defeatist approach, because I don't think that people were completely against regeneration, but the national picture will obviously hurt you in these local elections, and that they always do. And I think historically I've always questioned why that is, but they did. I want to touch on something that you mentioned at the beginning there, which is about the cancelled elections, because I did get some criticism for not asking you about that last week, and I probably should have done. So why do you think it was a good idea to have the locals cancelled? And you know, many people level a criticism at your door, and other people in your party, even some of the independents like Kerry Smith, they will say, you guys tried to take away our right to vote. How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, so there's different parts to it. I think it's really uncomfortable to be put in a position where you're being asked to make a representation to government and answer a series of questions that you're being asked by the government, mandatory questions, you have to answer them, where they are asking you whether or not your organisation has the capacity to deliver elections and the aftermath of them, whilst at the same time delivering the biggest reorganisation in 52 years that Essex has ever seen in terms of its local government. The answer to that question was no. And the truth is that we spent the whole of 2025 pretty much, I don't think there was a day or a week in 2025 that went past where I was not in a meeting or in more than one meeting about local government reorganisation. It was the thing that dominated, right? Putting together the proposals, the business plans, evaluating what the county council was doing, all of those sorts of stuff. And we did it, and we all worked very well together, cross-party, across the county of Essex. Since the 6th of February, when the elections got put back on, I don't think I've spoken about local government reorganisation. So no decisions have been taken, nothing has happened on that. It's basically stalled and gone nowhere. Now, bearing in mind, we're due to have the elections to those new councils in 12 months' time, less than 12 months' time now. We've lost a lot of capacity and a lot of time. The other reason that I was trying to explain to government is, you will be surprised in Whitehall how few people really understand elections in thirds. And you know, we might get into this in a little while, but essentially my argument to the government was, you are going to create councils that are in constant states of paralysis because the arithmetic just does not add up. No one can get to a majority, and the whole thing is going to fall apart when no one can go and make a decision, and you can't build consensus. So for all of those reasons, I agreed with what the government was seeking to do. I happen to think, you know, I heard two things really loudly and clearly from the public. They are annoyed about the government. So when I hear the government and I hear MPs and the Prime Minister say, people voted for change, we're not delivering it quickly enough. Right? All of that is true, but you have to articulate what the change is. And I'm not convinced that the Labour Party nationally has really done that. So I don't think that Joe Public in Basildon expect government to solve all of their problems, right? I think what they expect is a fair deal. And when you come out of your house and you see that the grass is only being cut 3 times a year and it looks a mess. Like I was in Ethiopia for work last year. Their roads and their pavements were better in Ethiopia than they were in Friends. Right, that is the truth of it. As I'm knocking on doors and walking around, and I am looking at the absolute carnage that we are classing as pavements. Now, my frustration about all of that, as I constantly try to tell people on social media, is Basildon Council is not responsible for pavements and potholes. If we were, they would not look like that. We would be investing in fixing them. Local government reorganisation, abolishing Essex County Council and creating unitary authorities, that is the silver bullet. That is the key to fixing those fundamental problems that people were telling us. Pride in place, right? The problem with the government, and the problem that I faced, is that, yeah, I got £40 million out of the government for Craylands and for the 5 links and for Chalverdon, but I can't access any of that money till the 1st of April 2027. The problem with local government reorganisation is, at the earliest, it doesn't take over till 2028. And the public was sitting there saying, look at the state of where I'm living. And I'm saying, I have a plan. I'm abolishing the county. We're going into LGR. We've got the pride of place money. This is what we're going to fix. And they were sat there going, 2 years in, Gav. Don't believe you. So we might as well roll the dice, bet against the house, and see if the other lot can come and do something about it. So the diagnosis and the cure is actually correct from the government. They recognise that we have to be investing in pride of place. We have to be taking care of those basics. We have to be fixing the potholes in the pavements. The problem is they've given you a prescription, but you've been told by the pharmacy you can't pick it up for 2 years. And that is a problem.
But that doesn't really explain why the elections were put off or planned to be put off.
It was to create that space for local government reorganisation to happen. We've got 10,000 members of staff across across Essex. We have got 15 different organisations that are FTSE 250 companies. If you were in the private sector and you were merging 15 companies down to 5, you wouldn't change the board halfway through that merger. You wouldn't get rid
okay, fair enough. But then some people might say, well, if that's the case, pause my council tax for a couple of years and crack on once you got it sorted out.
What did I do in Basildon?
You froze it, but they're still paying it, and ultimately,
Yeah, but people are still getting services from their council.
I mean,
their bins are still being picked up.
oh well, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, but
Like,
but it has to
look,
be paid
I'm
for.
a cynic, so when it comes to paying council tax and people like getting value for their money, I don't think they get any value for their money at all, and I think most people would agree with that.
But me and you,
even
on council, I've argued for a long time within the Labour Party that council tax is a regressive taxation, and it is a taxation that should be looked at. I also think that councils should be given precepts to enable us to raise council tax to pay for specific projects. So, for example, London were able to levy a precept to pay for the Olympic Games. If you're doing a big regeneration project, I think you should be able to levy a precept, ring fence that money just to be spent on that particular thing.
So was that your modus operandi for getting investors into Basildon Town Centre regeneration? Because I know you didn't get money from the government specifically for that, but was the Olympic framework what you kind of went in with to say, have a look at us?
Well, not really, because in terms of tax, we have no power. The only power I have as a district council is whether to raise it, freeze it, or lower it, right? They're the only 3 options that I have. What I'm suggesting to you is that I think the government could be more flexible when it comes to council tax. I think, whether council tax is even the right words now to be using. Do you know what I mean? It's about community. It's about what we're trying to achieve locally. I think there's an opportunity.
Well, community tax does sound very socialist, doesn't it?
But I don't think I've ever been called a socialist, Charlie.
Well,
not even in the Labour Party.
Well, I hope I haven't offended you, because if the stories are true, you might storm out.
You look very much like Matt Critchell.
Let's hope I don't sound like him.
Well, it was when he was doubled over, gasping for air because he had to run 5 yards, apparently, chasing me out of the room. But we can talk about that in a minute. My view on the elections was, you have to create the space and capacity. You have to keep the board at the table in order for them to carry on with the relationships to get this over the line, knowing also that in less than 12 months' time, we are going to have the biggest set of council elections in the recent history of Essex. So, everybody's going to get a say. Everybody's going to get to vote. So, in my opinion, everyone who got elected last Thursday, they're there for 2 years. Right? By the end of this calendar year, when the structural change order gets laid before Parliament, actually the leader of Basildon Council's powers are going to start to tail off and diminish. So, was this worth it? Is this a good use of taxpayer money?
If the powers of the council leader were to diminish, does that include you?
It would have done, yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to getting this over the line, and you said keeping the board in place, that's a good metaphor to use. How do you think the board, as it were, are going to respond to the election result? Because from my perspective, I predicted this from day one, the only way, and I think you predicted the same thing, is the only way for that council to function now is with a Tory reform coalition, which makes no sense to me, because if you vote reform, you don't want Tory, but you're going to get Tory now anyway. How will the board look at that arrangement, do you think?
Well, look, that's interesting, right? Let's just talk through those results, because there were a lot of different competing stories in that election, right? So, to give you an example, on election day itself, we were walking around, going into polling stations, asking the clerks for turnout figures, right? Every candidate, every political party does that. So you start to get a sense of what's happening. By mid-morning, turnout was higher in most polling stations than it is at the end of the day, right? So we knew from about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning that we were on for a hiding, that turnout was going to be phenomenally high. And that's what's happened, right? So we have generationally high turnout in a local election. Normally in my ward in St. Martin's, if it got above 20%, it would be doing well. This year it was at 32%, right? So that in itself is a sign of how sort of energized the electorate was in this election. The other side you'd look at it, in my view, is I'd look at my 3 wards around Basildon Town Centre, Lee Chapel, North Friends and St. Martin's. Despite how terrible life has been for the Labour Party nationally, despite the absolute kicking and the drubbing that we were getting across the board, more people went out and voted Labour this year than did in 2024 when we were at the height of our popularity and 10 points ahead in the polls.
I don't think you were popular in 2024, but okay.
We were ahead in the polls nationally,
yeah.
Right? But my point is, we won 18 seats on Basildon Council that night and all the rest of it. We saw more people voting Labour this year when we are at our lowest ebb than we did 2 years ago. Now, does that tell you a story about people's view and their faith in the regeneration? Potentially, right? It also is interesting to see what happened to the Conservative vote, because I've seen over the weekend Conservative colleagues taking victory laps. I've seen them having celebratory photos at the Sporting Village. Pathetic. They got absolutely battered in these sets of elections. 2 years ago, they had all of the seats in Langdon, all of the seats in Pitsea South East. They had seats in St. Martin's. They had seats in Langdon Hills. They had seats all across Wickford. They finished third and below in every single seat south of the 127. They were finishing behind the Greens in some of the seats. In Wickford, they didn't win anything, and they lost a seat in Wickford. They hung on in Billericay, but that's what they did. They hung on. So I've seen them try and make out that this was some kind of massive victory for the Conservative Party. It is a perverse consequence of the elections in thirds that 9 in 10 voters south of the 127 went out in a generationally high turnout election, voted for anyone but the Conservatives, and are now going to end up with a Conservative council leading them.
I totally agree with that. But do you think that the people turned out in their droves because Reform UK have led such a successful campaign? I personally don't. Look, from a strategic perspective, from that point of view, I think that focusing on a national problem, Keir Starmer in their view, has benefited them massively. But I don't like it because it doesn't show you anything that goes on locally. So when you read online, you see the leaflets, and I've got a few that I've looked over. It's vote for reform, get rid of Starmer. That was the general mantra of the whole local election campaign. And my view on that is, okay, let's presume that Keir Starmer does lose his job and he's going to be replaced. That for me is the issue. As someone on the right wing, you've got rid of Starmer. Okay, now what? Oh, well, you're going to give it to Angela Rayner, or you're going to give it to who's the health minister, Wes Streeting, or you're going to give it to an outlier like David Lammy, or so, anyone. Anyone can throw their hat in the ring, I'm sure, right? Then what? Well, we got rid of Starmer. Okay, now what are you going to do? Well, we might reduce council tax. You said that last time and you upped it. I think on average, Reform UK up council tax by about 4% across the board. I think a council in Worcester, 9%. 9%. And you'll hear Reform UK saying, oh, well, Nigel didn't say that. That wasn't what was said. That's not how we launched the last local campaign. Yes, it is. But you cannot then come in this time and say, right, our whole local campaign is to get rid of Keir Starmer, because you haven't changed the government. You've still got Labour for a few more years. Don't know if people need to get that through or not, but this local election doesn't change that. So when I look at this stuff, I think it resonates because people don't like Keir Starmer. I don't like Keir Starmer. But what happens now locally? Do I want... This is the thing that I have to address, because it kind of got under my skin a little bit after our interview last week. I am not a Labour voter. Shocker. But I believed in your vision after we had that interview. And I come out and said so. And I don't make any apologies for that, because I look at the town and I think to myself, we've got an opportunity here to continue something that started. Business obviously has confidence in your leadership at the council and what the council officers have been doing to help facilitate that. Let's get that over the line. Now, you've got a guy who goes online every day from the back of his shop, it looks like, just to say, vote for change and the good times are coming back. And, you know, I remember one point in the campaign, he was filming buskers outside Primark saying that Reform had brought music back to Basildon Town Centre. I'm thinking to myself, mate, people have got some real issues here. And, you know, look, if Sam Journet actually forms a part of this new administration in a big way, I hope he does well. I hope he proves me wrong. I hope that he does come through with something. But from what I've seen in the last 12 months, I mean, who's he going to have a go at now? Because now it's on him. Now it's on them to actually follow through on, we're going to be the change. Well, tell me, I've not seen your proposal yet, and I'm still waiting.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Labour are in a dangerous situation nationally, right? In the sense that if Starmer is forced out, whether that's this week, whether that is in a month's time, whether that's in 3 months' time, you're then in a situation where what happens in the local elections 2027, if Reform run a campaign saying vote Reform, get Streeton out.
Yeah.
Vote Reform, get Rayner out.
Yeah.
Vote Reform, get Burnham out.
Yeah.
Right? That it becomes a thing of every year leading up to the general election until 2029, it's vote Reform, get Labour out. Right? That will be the campaign plan for the next 3 years. So from a Labour Party strategist's point of view, you have to sit there and think through, is that the smartest move to kind of show him a win, right? And I suspect that there will be lots of people and lots of Labour MPs who are perhaps sympathetic to the idea that a change might be needed, that this phase in the project might be over and there needs to be a new leader. That's not where I am, but that might be where they are thinking, that are now going to sit there and go, we can't do it because of what Farage has done and what Reform have done. So that's point number one. I think point number two, I'm a political geek, right? I travel all around the world going to elections. I've campaigned in different countries. I've campaigned in different parts of the country. I take my hat off to Reform. What they did was absolute genius. They put 4 direct mails through the post. We'll have to figure out how they paid for that, but they've put 4 direct mails through the post. Probably crypto billionaire from Hong Kong has probably funded it, right? But they've done that, and they've put out these absolutely dreadful A5 leaflets through people's doors. And they've managed to inspire a generational turnout, and they've managed to inspire people to go out and vote for them when they have told them the square root of fuck all about what they're going to do for them in their local town.
So do you think that's the issue, is that they've come out with this, like I said, credit to them, they've led this massive campaign against Keir Starmer, and that has effectively derailed you?
Of course it was. I mean, it was a general election. It wasn't a local election last week. That's how this whole thing was framed and phrased. And I spoke to so many people on polling day. And when you're in these campaigns, you hear that I'm always really skeptical of data, right? Because I'm 6'1", I'm wide as a door frame. If I stand on your doorstep and I say you're going to vote for me, 9 times out of 10, people turn around and say, yeah, I probably am, to be honest, right? And so I'm always a bit like, the data's probably a bit skewed, right? It's probably not real. When you get to polling day, then there's a shift, and you start to get the sense of how's this going to go, right? And people were kind of saying, yeah, we voted because we just want to get rid of Keir, or we like what you've done locally, but we've got to send a message to government. So you were hearing that on the doorstep. So yes, they definitely did manage to turn this into a general election. I also think, though, Charlie, and this is true for local government as well as it is for national government, people want their government at every single level to be like Amazon, right? We all have these now, right? And this gives you, every single day, it gives you instant gratification, right? Likes, shares, arguments on social media. It's feeding you messages in your algorithm.
Are you projecting right now? Because you seem to love a row too.
But it's what it does, right? If I'm sat at home and I'm thinking, I want something, I go on Amazon.
I'll post
right?
something on Facebook.
But like, or you know, if my missus says we need something for the house, I'll go on Amazon and it's there the next day. If I'm thinking I want to go and buy some clobber, I'll go online and it's there the next day, or sometimes it's there the same day.
Yeah.
So when you've got a government
Did that last night.
I'm very good.
There we go.
Get a new shirt, yeah. So when
I can't believe you're criticising the way I'm dressed when last week you come in pyjamas. So you notice he's made an effort this week, guys. Like
for another 10 days, I'm still the most stylish council leader in the country.
He's out of a job, but he comes dressed like he's got one. It's crazy.
But my point is that if the government or if your council is turning around and saying to you, we'll get you an answer in 10 days, or getting this regeneration over the line is going to take another 2 years, the public now just want to see things happening quicker than that. And I think, you know, we always had a saying in the council. I always used to say to my officers, I need some quick wins. I need quick wins. So what have you got for me that's a quick win that we can go out to? Can you change what we're spending here, put it in there, get some comms out on that, let's get the quick wins. This government hasn't done that. This government almost appears to be a bit harsh and unkind in its treatment of people, whether that's the winter fuel allowance, whether that's the way we're treating businesses, that kind of stuff. It feels very harsh. So I think, you know, we need to change up some of that, but we have to respect where the voters are. I would all just say this as well, right? Governing at any level is really hard work, right? Getting things done and delivered is really, really hard work. You need those officers on your side. You need them going into work, energized, motivated, ready to come into your office to say, we're looking to do this, we're looking to do that, working with their cabinet members, right? The way some of them have been treated over the course of the last 12 months, I think there's a real repairing of relations that's going to have to go on there, right? The other thing that I would say is, if you're Reform UK, you have set expectations sky high. I mean, you've heard it, I've heard it. These bearded incels walking around on social media.
Why do you keep calling him that?
Delivering change.
Why do you keep saying that?
Because it's true. I mean, look into these people. Do your due diligence.
Well, I don't really care if he's having sex or not.
Oh, I'm not getting into that. But
well, that's what an incel is.
Also, their views towards women is very difficult. And if you look at the way in which women have been treated by a Reform UK councillor over the course of the last 9 months, it falls well below acceptable.
Do you know what? That's
standards.
something that I found quite intriguing, actually. Now you've mentioned it, I want to go back into the campaign result and things that led up to Reform stealing a lot of seats. Sarah Shields.
They didn't steal seats; they won seats.
Well, I call it a steal because it's, you know, they voted on nothing. Look, if people want to vote for this pie in the sky dream,
I want to be really clear. I'm not Donald Trump. I'm not saying that this election was stolen or rigged. We lost fair and square.
Well, I don't care what you call me, obviously, because I get called a fat every day on Facebook, so I don't really care. The point is that the point I'm trying to get to is that Sarah Shields, she left Reform because she claimed she was being bullied by Sam Junet.
She was, yeah.
You managed to put that out on one of your own campaign leaflets, which some people thought was a little bit off. They felt like there was some sort of foul play there. Why did she come to you and give you that statement and permission to print that?
Well, listen, Sarah isn't here to talk about to defend herself or to put her side of the story across. All I can say is I said to you before, I will work with any councillor from any political party who's in it for the right reasons and wants to do a good job. And so from, you know, very early on with Sarah, I've worked with her, helped her, and been, you know, my door has been open to casework issues and all that sort of stuff. It has become increasingly apparent to myself, to the chief executive, that the behaviour towards her, you know, her visibly upset, crying in council meetings, leaving council meetings early. I think the last four full council meetings that she was involved in, she either had to leave halfway through or she didn't turn up at all because of the relationship. She ended up moving seats because she didn't want to sit next to Sam in the chamber because of abuse that was coming her way. I don't care what political party you are, right? If that's happening, that's wrong. If you don't feel comfortable, safe to be able to exercise your democratic rights as an elected official, then that isn't acceptable behaviour. I know Sarah did go to Reform UK to make a complaint it was ignored and she was deselected. Now, was that because of the complaint? We won't know.
Was she deselected by Reform HQ or by Sam and the branch?
I don't know how it works in Sam. All I know is that she was deselected and she wasn't allowed to refight her seat, which is incredibly unusual to have been elected the first ever Reform
Well, you'd
councillor.
actually think that maybe there should be an investigation by Reform UK HQ into the conduct of Sam, because you've got a councillor who's left via accusations of bullying. You've got his arrest inside the council, which I'm not going to go into. You've got, as you've intimated, the council officers are not looking forward to a new administration with him with any lever of power.
I can't speak for them, but
you've kind of intimated there might be some
suggested.
friction, and that's fair enough, because I've heard the same stories that you have, and if people go online, they can read the same stories about council officers not feeling as they should in the workplace, right? So
what I would say about Sarah is, alongside the fact that she was deselected by Reform, she also raised this publicly on Facebook, and the Basildon Echo took over 2 weeks to run the story. I've spoken to the journalist who wrote the story. He has told me and another councillor that his editor refused to name Sam Genet in the story. They claimed defamation, but anyone who's read the Daily Telegraph articles into me will know that that doesn't stack up. The editor of the Echo was trying to curry favour with Reform, so it was a very lame piece that didn't even mention who had been bullying her. If that had been me, the Echo would have put it on the front page of the paper. They buried it in the back of the book. I think it was on page 11 or something when they eventually did run the piece. They put it online, but they didn't mention her. She had nowhere else to go. And she came to me and she said she wanted to cause him maximum damage electorally. And I thought her letter and her message was incredibly powerful. And you have to remember that on a night where Reform were getting majorities of 1,000 in many seats across Basildon, in St Martin's, Sam lost 3 points on his vote share. Labour were within 140 votes of taking that seat. I can tell you, having been stood behind him at the count, he really was sweating when those boxes were being tipped out and they were being counted. It was quite a sight. And listen, he won the election, and good luck to him, and fair play. But I think there are some very, very serious concerns. I know, because I've had conversations with people that are Reform UK councillors, and again, I talk to people from all different political parties. I'm not entirely convinced that this is going to end as well for Sam as he might think. And I know that there are now, when you're a councillor in opposition in a group of 2 and a council of 42 members, as important as you think you are, you're not actually very editorially exciting, right? No one is going to be picking up the Daily Mirror and saying, "Oh God, yeah, look what's happened to that opposition councillor on the back benches in Basildon Council." Do you know what I mean? That's not a story. If you go on Sky News lauding it up after you've just won an election, and if you're the deputy leader of the council, you suddenly become fair game. So all of a sudden, those journalists who might have been saying, "Leave it, it's not interesting," suddenly you are.
I mean, you call Sam sweaty. You've said that he's a bearded incel.
Was I talking about him?
Okay, well, you can play the politician if you like, but how do you feel about the accusations that you have bullied Sam?
Listen, I think in politics it's a robust game, right? I don't think you can. I believe that the bar for what is unacceptable levels of bullying or harassment is through the roof for an elected official. I mean, the stuff that I get called is unbelievable, right? On a daily basis. God bless my late mother who's not here, because she used to read it every day and be in bits over it, right? I don't look at social media in that way, because it'd do your head in if you sat there.
My mum does that as well, so yeah, she does. She goes, "Charlie, I don't know how you do this." I'm just like, I quite enjoy it actually. So,
but I don't believe that there is anything that we have done that constitutes bullying of Sam Genet, right? You have to frame your opposition. You have to characterise that. They've done it with me. That corrupt Callaghan. That's what they put out all the time. You know, Sam has posted photos of my house. He has, you know, we had to take my child out of nursery because we didn't think that it was very safe for her to stay in that nursery, because at the time there were people that were finding out where we lived and where we went and making comments online about my family and all that sort of stuff. I've been accused of being connected to planners and developers that I have never been connected to in my life. Somebody has come up with some falsified information about connections to contractors on the council and all that sort of stuff. When, you know, I declare all of my interests, my register is up to date. I haven't got any interests when it comes to the council, and so it's just been a pure kind of hit job on trying to smear me, smear my family, and try and force me out of office. To some extent, they won, right? They managed to do that. Although I have to say, I think, judging by the reaction I've had from the public, my reputation is very much been bolstered by the last 2 years. It hasn't been bruised and anything negative. As I said, Sam is about to get put under enormous scrutiny. Enormous scrutiny. So is Zoe Hockton. So is John Peters. So is Darren Gardner. So are all of these other people. Every skeleton they've got in their closet, they are about to be revealed, right? And I can assure you of that. And that's not threatening. It's part of this job in the public eye is scrutiny. And you can't filibuster your way out of that. You can't sit here and say that Companies House had an administrative error. That's why you didn't file your accounts for 3 years, right? That shit just isn't going to fly, right? You are going to be held to account. They will be looking at your HMRC. They'll be looking at all of those things, right? National journalists are going to start really going after them for this stuff. So that's part and parcel of accountability. Now, you know, what I would say is we had this election on Thursday, and we had a generationally high turnout. We had people really, really interested in it. We had hundreds of people turning up to a council meeting demanding that democracy wasn't denied and all that kind of stuff. We had people go out and vote in record numbers for a council election. As we are recording this podcast on Monday morning, nobody knows the result. No one's got a clue right now who's going to be the leader of the council, who's going to be the opposition, what the committee structures are going to look like, what the scrutiny function is going to look like, what the portfolios are going to look like. It's a mess.
Well, you could say that, but when you won last time around, you've had to work with other people in the council the same way that this council will now have to be formulated. AGMs come around, annual general meetings, and that's where these things get discussed. We can predict what will happen. I don't think it's the calamity that you're making it out to be.
It is going to be, right, so you're right that the council has been in no overall control for most of the last decade in Basildon, right? There's been a period of about 3 or 4 years where it hasn't, but the majority of this time it's been in no overall control. In this period between the election and the AGM, which is the 21st of May, group leaders will be trying to put what's called an order paper together. The chief executive of the council has to be satisfied that an order paper can command a working majority or a working minority with confidence and supply in order to present that to the council. Now, in 2017, when I put forward the very first coalition, that was Labour, UKIP, and the Independent/Wickford Independents, right? It was slightly different because we were in the committee system, so we were going to be voting in the committee system anyway, so the Tories were always going to be outvoted. But we knew each other. So in 2017, that was the county council election, so it was a fallow year. So I'd had 12 months from 2016 to 2017 to get to know the characters of the UKIPers, and me and Kerry didn't get on for a long time, but me and Kerry kind of started speaking. David Harrison, the late David Harrison, God rest his soul, we would be chatting as well. In 2019, again, I knew all of the characters that were involved in putting this together. And what I mean by that is you've got to understand a bit about their politics, a bit about how they're thinking, what's their views on planning, right? Are they pro-house building, or are they never going to build a brick anywhere in the borough? Are they pro-regeneration? Are they anti it? Are they big on environment, nature, climate change? Right, you get all of that kind of different mix in there. Are people, really focused on law and order? And you say, right, you have to balance all of that up into your thinking about how you're going to structure this deal and put it all together. In 2019, I think I had 14 seats, Kerry had 6, and the Wickford Independents had 3. So we had 23 seats between us. I had to give 50% of what were cabinet roles, I had to give 50% of them away in order to keep them at the table. I had 14 councillors. What is happening now at the council is that we are trying to work out who can command a majority. So it's true that I can get 18 councillors to put their hands up on the 21st of May to say we want Gavin Callaghan to remain as leader. Right, that is true. But I am 3 short of a working majority to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. I also have to accept that not a single ward voted for me to carry on as leader last week. I have to take my medicine on that, and I have to accept that democracy has spoken and people don't want me to be the leader of the council. Okay? So I accept that. In this configuration, that's where we are. Andy Barnes, therefore, as the leader of the Conservative group, and Sam Genet as the leader of the Reform group, are going to have to try and hammer out a deal. And as I said, at the count on Thursday night, it's not just that the Tories don't know anything about the Reform coalition partners. The Reform councillors, now candidates, now councillors, were introducing themselves to each other because they too had not ever met each other.
You mean Reform were introducing each other to Reform?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So candidates perhaps from the Wickford and Rayleigh branch who had won seats in Wickford North or in Wickford Park perhaps don't have anything to do with the South Basildon and East Thurrock branch, so were introducing themselves to the Langdon Hills candidates so that they were having conversations. So they don't even know each other. So you've now got 11 of these Reform councillors coming together, apparently to stop the boats, but we haven't got any shorelines in Basildon, so I'm not entirely sure how we're doing that. But they're kind of coming together to work together. And bearing in mind that in many of my wards, like Lee Chapel North, like Freelands, like St Martin's, like Pitsea North West, the Conservative Party have been hugely rejected in this election, right? 9 out of 10 votes in their wards were against the Conservative Party, but now those councillors are going to be asked to put their hands up to vote for the Billericay Tories to be back in control of Basildon Council. Are they going to do that? Are they going to feel comfortable doing that? Are their residents going to be on their case immediately saying, well, hang on a minute, I voted for you because you said you would change, and you've now gone and put the Billericay Tories back in charge? So I think that in this negotiation that will be taking place, you have to have parity.
Okay, so let's elaborate on that point just for a moment, because you actually said in your preamble to the question that I asked you was that you worked in coalition with UKIP and other independents. When people voted for Labour, they didn't vote for UKIP. So
Correct.
Do you accept that because of elections in thirds and because of the fact that you can never get a working majority because of that system, that you have to make alliances that you don't really want to have to make?
Yes, I think that's true, but I think you therefore have to be honest with the public about that. So everybody has always known on the 3 occasions that I've led the council that in order for me to be the leader of the council, I have to work in partnership with the independents, right?
I've never read that on your leaflets.
Well, I've said it. I do Facebook Lives on a weekly basis. I've made it really clear.
All right, well, let's pretend I'm a caveman and I'm waiting for posts. I don't know that.
If you look at every time I've been the leader of the council, I have been in coalition with the independents. Every single time. Right?
I'm just asking you to be consistent in your point.
Well, I can't be more consistent than every single time I've been the leader of the council, and whenever I've
Yes,
gone to
but
the
mate,
public.
you don't campaign on a coalition. You campaign on Vote Labour. You don't campaign to say vote for me and Kerry. You vote to vote for me.
Yeah, that's true in the wards that we're targeting, but you also have the fact that when we're really clear that you wake up on Friday morning, as I said, and you either have the Billericay and Reform, Billericay Tories and Reform, or you have Labour and the Independents leading your council. We made that abundantly clear in this election campaign. The Tories and Reform both kept saying that that wasn't true. Even on polling day, that stood next to one of our canvassers on the doorstep when one of the voters was saying, I'm going to vote reform nationally. I want Nigel Farage to be Prime Minister. But if I vote for you, Eileen Brown, you're going to put the Billericay Tories back in charge. And she's there saying, absolutely not. We won't be doing that. We don't want to be working with the Tories. Well, she got elected, and we'll be seeing how she votes in 10 days' time. Because, and I mean, this is a really, really important point about parity. Really, really important point. I accept legally you have to have an administration. I fully accept that, which is why I made the statement I made on Sunday where I was really clear with the public. I accept that Labour cannot form an administration. I haven't resigned, right? It's like saying Rishi...
Do you know, I've had messages about that from people around the country involved in political commentary saying, oh, how do you feel about Gavin resigning after your interview? I'm like, that he hasn't resigned. He's accepting the reality that he can't control the council.
Resign as Prime Minister? I mean, no, he was beaten. Mathematically, he couldn't form a government, so he had to leave Downing Street.
Yeah.
I mathematically can't form an administration, so I'm going to have to leave the leader's office in Basildon Council. I haven't resigned. It's just a statement of fact about how this process works.
All right, let me put something to you in...
Sorry, but let me finish this point, right? Because this is critically important. If Reform UK allow the Conservatives to take every single cabinet position and control the executive, and they just take the chairs of committees like planning and licensing and all of them, that is a massive sellout. And they will have been played like a fiddle.
But what about the bedfellows argument that I just made? The unusual alliances, the people you want to work with, that you have to work with, that you don't want to work with. Do Reform UK just have to accept that this is going to be the reality? And
well, look, Reform and the Tories are two cheeks of the same arse, right?
I agree.
There's barely anything between them in terms of their politics now, especially in Basildon with the way that Andy Barnes and Phil Turner and others have approached the last sort of 6 to 9 months. I believe a lot of Conservatives, moderate Conservatives, are disgusted at that, which is why you saw their vote collapse in everywhere bar Billericay last week. But my point is this. If you are promising change, if you've won 11 out of 14 seats promising change, and it's within your power and within your gift to be delivering that change as the kingmakers, you have to get the deputy leadership of the council, you have to take 5 out of the 10 cabinet roles, and you have to take 50% of the chairmanships of the regulatory and scrutiny functions. If you don't do that, you have given away the chance for change that people voted for. And the Tories are going to have to swallow that. And they are going to have to say, if we want to be back in charge, we are going to have to give 50% of these positions away to Reform. This is not like in 2024, when I was on 18 and I was only 4 seats away from a majority, and we had 11 independent councillors across the Wickford Independents and Kerry's team as well. I needed 4 seats, so therefore it was always going to be the case that Labour had more seats in cabinet than the Independents, and the Wickford Independents didn't want to be in the cabinet, but they got overview and scrutiny, and we kind of gave it. We're not there, right? Me, the Tories, Reform, we are individually miles away from a majority in electoral math terms here. So therefore, whatever happens, there has to be parity. And the point I would make about this is, I refuse to accept that Basildon Council was a broken council. I refuse to accept that Basildon was broken as a borough. And I refuse to accept that I led a council that was chaotic, dysfunctional, and the rest of it. You don't get £172 million of private sector investment if your council's chaotic. You don't have a further £1.3 billion worth of investment on the table if your council's chaotic. You don't radically change a bin system, and which is a huge uplift and logistical nightmare if your council's chaotic. You don't halve fly tipping in 2 years. You don't do all of those things that I achieved in 2 years if your council's chaotic. Andy Barnes allowed that impression. He allowed the chaos. He allowed the dysfunction. He made his bed very, 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 very messily. And now he's got a lie in it. And all of those people. So my phone this weekend ringing round the hook from chairman of the Essex Conservatives and Independents and Wickford Independents ringing me up saying, got to keep reform out of the administration. we need to. No one can do a deal with Sam Genet. No one wants to work with Sam. Gavin, would you do this? Would you do that? It's not my problem. This is what the electorate voted for. They've got to be given the chance to govern. They have got to be given the opportunity to form an administration. So don't come looking to me for favours when you have created the environment to allow madness to thrive.
So despite the accusations that you try to thwart democracy, you're actually quite a Democrat, aren't you?
I'm the one saving democracy.
Here we go, he's the Messiah.
I'm the one who is respecting the result.
Yeah.
And I'm the one saying, off you go.
Now, I have a prediction.
And good luck.
Yeah, I've read your statement. Yeah, I did like that at the end there. Good luck. Yeah.
You're going to need it.
Good luck, Gavin. I saw that.
I couldn't say Councillor Callaghan.
No, don't say that.
That would be very egotistical. That would be very Andrew Schrader.
Yeah. Former leader, Councillor Gavin Callaghan.
Former leader.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Soon to be leader again and then former leader.
Times 3.
Yeah, exactly. You going to come back for a fourth time, do you think?
Listen, I would say to you, in all seriousness, I think this could go south very, very quickly.
That was going to be part of my prediction, actually, is that I think that one thing I do know about Conservatives, especially the people that are on Basildon Council right now, and I know some of them really rather well, they will not play second fiddle to Reform UK. And from what I gather from what I've seen and what I've learned from Sam, I mean, me and Sam used to talk, he has these delusions of grandeur where he believes that no matter what, he's king of Basildon. It makes no difference what the result was. I mean, I remember when he won the by-election a year ago, he said, once I get in, I'm taking over the whole place. And I thought, okay, for a businessman, accounting is not really your strong suit here. You're one of 42 others, you know. So my prediction is that it will be a very tumultuous time at the council where nothing will get done. Literally nothing will get done. And I do wonder whether or not you think there will be people who will tire of that, people who are actually serious about doing something positive for their areas that might say, do you know what, this Reform UK stuff isn't really working out for me. Or even on the other side of the fence, people might say, do you know what, I'm not happy with the Conservatives working with Reform UK. Do you predict, like I do, that there will be some defections or people just leaving, maybe not defecting, but just saying, look, I'm going on my own?
I don't know, because I don't know them well enough yet. Did all 11 of those people expect to win? Or are some of them sitting there going, I thought I was a paper candidate and I don't really want to do this, because it's a big commitment. You've got to give up a lot of your evenings. You've got to give up a lot of your weekends. You're going to be getting demands from residents. I tell you, it's not always friendly, right? You're going to get people who are saying, well, hang on a minute, I voted for you because you said you were going to get me out of my council house. You said that you were going to fix my council house. You said I was going to do this or I was going to do that. And, you know, that demand and that expectation, suddenly it's like, is this really the most enjoyable job for about 350 quid a month to be getting all of this in the back as a backbencher, getting this in the neck? So there will, you know, inevitably when you get councils and groups, you know, and I've been around for 15 years in local government, it's not a surprise when you look across the country nationally in the last 12 months that the one political party that has hemorrhaged councillors and gone for by-elections more than any other is Reform. Right? And you see that because of suspensions, because of defections, and because of people saying, I don't want to do this job, right? So do I think that that group of 11 will stay the course? No, I don't. I think there will be natural attrition and I think they will lose numbers. I also think that you're right. I think that there will be some people in that group who want to act like clowns and who want to make this whole thing about personality politics, blame me, blame the last administration for absolutely everything, whilst at the same time, again, this made me laugh last night when I put my statement out. Every year, the council has a budget deficit. Every year. And it has since 2010, right? Last year, we had a budget deficit of £2 million. This year, it is a budget deficit of £5.5 million. The year after, there's a budget deficit of £3 million. If you don't find the 5 this year, you've got to find the 8 million next year. That isn't me leaving a black hole. That is the reality that every year, whomever is administration, you have to find those savings. You have to find those cuts. Or you have to do what I was doing, and you have to increase your revenue. Okay. So you have to bring in more money to offset against that deficit. So if you buy the Eastgate stabilisation value, you start getting about £800,000 of profit coming in, right? So all of a sudden, your 5 million you've got to find is only 4.2 million that you've got to find, right? So that's where you've got to do the thinking. Now, all of that is in what's called the medium-term financial strategy, the MTFS. That is published every single quarter. It goes to overview and scrutiny every single quarter, and it was in the budget book in February. Every councillor has known that that is the deficit this year, next year, and the year after. So they are going to have to make some savage decisions. If they're not going to go down my route of increasing revenues and commercialising and taking on debt in order to yield profit and to offset that way, bearing in mind, they have promised on the record to cut council tax by 5% reform. The Tories promised a 1% cut. 5% is another £1 million, right? So it could be a £6.5 million budget gap this year if they're going to deliver on their promises. That group is going to be sat there going, and some of them are going to be like, do we want to close the George Hurd Centre? Is that really what we want to be doing? Do we want to go back to fortnightly bins? Is that really what we're doing?
Well, I know that, well, I'm not going to say how I know this, but I do know that Sam Genet didn't even know the George Hurd Centre existed. Because, well, again, I can't go any further than that, but just take my word for it if you have any faith in me at all. But, like, you know, he's not been there.
But my point is, you have 11...
That's his ward, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so's the Eastgate.
Yeah, sure.
May or may not have an interest in that as well. But the point I'm making is that there are 11 reform councillors for whom the rubber is about to hit the road. Right? You are about to be a councillor, and you are about to have to make these decisions. You are going to be going along to full council, and you're going to have to put your hand up or put your hand down on those decisions. Now, again, I think what will start to happen, because I saw this with UKIP, is it will start to be the case that some of those people are going to sit there and go, actually, change was being delivered by Gavin Callaghan and by the Labour Party. Actually, the regeneration, the ideas he had that were all backed up by the economic analysis that he had done by Mott MacDonald and all these other people, that might have been a goer. So why were we against the arena? Why were we against acquiring the Eastgate? What is happening with all of those things now? They're going to have to balance up between, we might have said something before the election, but now we're going to change our mind on it and we're going to be in favour of it. Or we might have slagged Gavin off before, but now we're going to have to admit that he was right on certain things. So I'm going to be watching very, very closely. But I suspect that the 23 that they have at the moment, I can't see it being 23 for very long. And if you're a Conservative, and far be it from me to offer my brethren in the Tory party any advice.
Oh, go on.
I don't understand the logic. I honestly, if I was in their position a year out from the all-out elections with a £5.5 million budget gap this year, with reform being a circus in Basildon with their leader, I think it's madness to even think about getting into bed with them. But they did.
But then what do they do? Then if they don't, the chances of the Conservative Party forming any sort of alliance with you is a redundant argument. Reform UK, given the attack line they've had and given how vicious this last year has been between you and Sam, again, also redundant. They've got no choice, it seems.
Well, they do, don't they?
Well, what choice do they have?
So Reform and the Tories together at this moment in time is a majority. That means that in terms of the proportionality on committees, the Tories and Reform will always have a majority. So on planning, as an example, they will have a majority. On licensing, on overview and scrutiny, they will have a majority. There are things that I can do that no one else in that council can do. For example, on things like the local plan. I have the ear of government. I have the ear of the Secretary of State. There are things I can do on planning numbers, on the speed at which a local plan has to be delivered. Equally, I have the ear of government to say they're not being sensible. Maybe we should do something else, right?
How's that worked out?
So, well, there is the local plan at the moment is progressing. It's going through. We see if it's got £40 million out of central government for Pride in place. We would have got a sizable grant for the arena as well. So all of those things are things that I can do. So if the Conservative Party had come to me at any point in the last 6 months and said, look, we're both going to get an absolute kick in here, but it's not going to be in any of our interests to promote reform and give them a platform and allow them to be front and centre. Is there something you can do for us on the local plan that might help in Billericay, that might help our constituents there? And in return, you and the independents carry on in administration on the executive, and we have to come to some sort of an agreement on the budget. That would have been a sensible grown-up thing to do. I think since Thursday, Andy Barnes has been on every single social media post slagging me and the Labour Party off. I don't understand the strategy. I don't understand where they're going with it.
Yeah, well, you did say earlier on that the public didn't vote to keep you
Absolutely.
any place. So I suppose that idea is pretty much pie in the sky.
Well, it certainly hasn't been put on the table by the Conservatives, and
it won't be.
And from my perspective, as I said to you, I have the confidence of 18 councillors. So if you took reform out of the equation, Andy Barnes, just in a straight race as to who should be leader, Andy Barnes can get 13 votes. I can get 18.
In hindsight, do you wish you'd proposed what you've basically said you want the Conservatives to propose?
No, because they wouldn't have accepted it. There are sensible Tories in that group who, were talking to me at the count and have spoken to me over the weekend, who are saying we are making a huge mistake going in with reform.
Yeah.
Right? And that we are making, James Cleverly was on the Koonsberg show on Sunday telling everybody that there should be no coalitions between Reform and the Conservatives. Right? So, but what does that mean for where they are? On the other hand, you've got half of that Tory group, the Kevin Blakes and the Phil Turners of this world, who would jump into bed with Reform tomorrow if they could.
Do you think that... Well, I actually think James Cleverly is right from the perspective of Conservative Party survival.
I agree.
Because if they don't say we're slightly different, then if they do bandy up with Reform, they'll get swallowed and enveloped, and that'll be the end of the story for them. Which I think will happen anyway, actually. In the long term, I think the Conservative Party doesn't have a way back. And I think that they're just buying time.
But that's interesting as well, isn't it? Because if you look at the results on Thursday, 2 years into the Cameron government, I won my seat in Basildon. I got elected in 2012. That night, Labour recovered in some way. We went up in terms of our number. Everyone's talking about Labour lost 1,400 seats on Thursday, right? Tony Blair lost 1,100 when in his 1999, so 2 years into that Blair government. It's not unusual for incumbent governments to get a kick in. I accept that we got historic losses in places like Wales and London and other areas, and that makes it worse. I get that. But the Tories lost 500, nearly 600 seats on Thursday. Right? Essex County Council has been obliterated. The leader of Essex County Council lost his seat. Right? This was not a good night for the Conservatives, and I give you a clue, and I'll concede it wasn't because of the Labour Party. Right?
No.
Right? We were not the ones who were eating the Tory Party's lunch. It was Reform, and so this is what I mean, Charlie, about why I said in my post, "Good luck," right? Because whatever you come up with in the next 10 days, you have to be so sure that's going to last for the next 2 years. And if I was Andy Barnes, and if I was in that Conservative group, I'd be sitting there going,
Yeah, I wouldn't be happy either, to be fair. And
I'd be thinking, really?
Yeah, and I think that there is a lesson when it comes to politics. Something that I've picked up over the years is that it's much easier to criticise from the outside, being in opposition, saying that...
I'm going to have so much fun.
Yeah, I bet you are. You're going to love this. Saying that, they're shit and that's rubbish and they could do better and they're a scumbag, etc., etc., they're corrupt, right? Easy to do that.
Or their policies are wrong.
Or that. I mean, I don't really hear much of that in politics these days. I just hear that someone's, a wrong un, basically, half the time, which is sad. I'd like to debate policy more. But you are going to find that these people that have come in, who are all amateurs, every single one of them, it's not just in Basildon, but it'll be across the whole country. These people this is their first stab at things. Yeah. And in our interview last week, you said that your first time around as leader of Basildon Council, you got played like a fiddle by officers.
Absolutely. How
many fiddles do you think are going to get played now?
Mate, there's an orchestra waiting to it's going to be like an Irish trad music, kind of everyone on the fiddle. I mean, again, this is the other thing.
Great choice of words there, by the way.
Because of the way in which reform have operated locally, because of the threats that have been being made. I mean, again, I sometimes think that councillors can be really naive about this. You asked me a question last week about, can I sack people as a councillor, right? The answer to that is no, right? We are not the head of paid service. We can have negotiations and ask people if they would consider leaving, but that comes at a cost, right? And that means that you have to put your hand in your pocket and pay out enormous six-figure sums of money. If I look, for example, at some of the comments online about the chief executive of the council, I mean, that is an employment tribunal waiting to happen. And because of some of those comments, Sam Genet and Phil Turner in particular, the chief executive will be taking wheelbarrows of cash out of that council in compensation for some of the stuff that has been said. I know that the union are considering balloting for strike action because of the behaviour of Sam Genet towards staff over the last few months. Now, if that happens and you end up with the bin men on strike, that's Birmingham.
Well, that could play in two different ways. It could be that there's a genuine grievance where these people do not want to work for Reform UK.
No, not Reform UK, Sam Genet.
Well, okay. Potato.
No, because officers will work for whomever is elected. They will be
but
professional.
You're saying it's directly him.
It's the way in which he is bullied.
Well, he's the leader of their group,
officers.
so forgive me for that. Let's Sam Genet, right? They won't work for him. But then on the flip side, that's political gold, because he could say, look, the establishment are out to get me. This is what happens with the deep state. This is what happens when they don't like your politics. They're trying to steal your council from you. I'm trying to give it to you back.
That's great until you've got rats outside because your bins haven't been collected.
Yeah, sure. But I'm just saying, if you flip it, that's not necessarily a negative for reform to campaign on the next.
Listen,
they could just say the council is basically Labour centric, and that's why we need to get rid of them as well.
Well, I mean, listen, if they want to go down that route, you can. But ultimately, you can only do that for so long. If you've gone around promising change, you better deliver change. So and again, I don't know what that change looks like. You don't know what that change looks like. So all of a sudden, those people who've been elected as agents for change in reform are going to find themselves sitting there going, well, why is it that the motions at full council from Labour and the Independents are more revolutionary and are more kind of in tune with what our voters are saying than what we're getting out of the Tories?
Yeah.
And they're going to get frustrated.
When I first met Sam, the only bit of advice that I gave him was, look, you're going to try and have a go at Gavin and Labour, fine, do your job, but get behind the town centre. It's the one bit of advice that I gave him, and I said to him, whatever you do, back that day one. He didn't, and he doesn't want to, and we'll have to see if it pans out. What are you going to do now? Because this is your third time ending as council leader. I don't want to labour the point, no pun intended, that you've been kicked out for a third time. And you keep coming back. First of all, do you want to come back as leader at some point? I'm assuming, knowing you the way I do, that you probably are thinking about that in the future again. I feel like you're the kind of person that unless you fulfil the ambitions that you put down on the table, you're going to be completely unsatisfied as a man. And that's just my impression, and you're smirking, and I think I'm right. Secondly, outside of politics, do you have anything going on that you're focused on?
Look, I think it is true to say that whilst I could see the result that was going to come last Thursday coming, there is a view of or a real sense within me of unfinished business. Mm-hmm. If we had got through this election, I think year 3 you would have really started to see cranes in the sky, things opening, moving in a really positive direction. it would have been unstoppable at that point. The reality about things now is the arena is stoppable. The Eastgate, they could say we're still in the calling off period. We're not going to sign the contract, so we're not going to go ahead with it. A year on, we would have been unstoppable. So, yes, there's a part of me that thinks there's unfinished business. I also feel a responsibility to Basildon, right? Whether I should or not, they keep throwing me out, right? But I do still feel a responsibility.
But then again, they do keep voting you back in. So there's yin and yang there.
And I do look at the fact that more people voted Labour last week than they did in 2024, and that we have seen our support pretty steady across the other areas of the borough. So there is a responsibility I feel to those people. I feel a responsibility to officers because I have taken them on a journey with me over the course of the last 2 years, and I know they want to finish the job and see it off. I look at the composition of that council and I think to myself, I am not convinced that what is decided on the 21st of May still holds in 6 months' time. So I think that there is potential instability in that council, and there may come a point where stability is needed, and we need to think about that. So there's an element of that. But I meant what I said last week. I love Basildon. I still do, even if they keep slapping me in the face, right? And I still think that we were onto something. We can be onto something. We have the all-out elections next year for South West Essex Council. That gives us the opportunity to paint on a bigger canvas. It gives us the chance to do big and important things. And I think, I am preparing to get the Labour Party in a position where we can fight those elections and we can win seats and hopefully have a bigger influence with a bigger budget and be able to do more things for the people of Basildon that we haven't been able to do in this two-tier system. On a personal level, I lost my mum in November, and that was really, really hard. So, there really are worse things that can happen to you than losing an election. I've obviously been thrown into this job. It doesn't really give you much time and space. So, I will spend more time with my family. I'm having another baby in 6 weeks' time as well. I'm going to cancel my Netflix subscription after that one, I think. But 3 children under the age of 3.5 is going to keep me busy. I do a lot of work out of the country as well, or I was before I was doing this. I was in Ethiopia, I was in Sudan, I was in the Middle East, I was in Eastern Europe, working on helping politicians and political parties put coalitions together, ironically.
You couldn't write that.
As to how you make it up. So if Andy wants to ring me, I've got some international experience that I might be able to pass on. So I'll probably go back to picking up my passport and going off and doing a bit of that as well. But people are asking if I'm going to stand down as the leader of the council. I'm not going to, as a councillor, I'm not going to do that. I've got 2 years left as a councillor. Although I do think some people were quite surprised that I'm still a councillor. I think they thought I was going on Thursday. Yeah. But sadly for them, no, I'm still here for 2 years. And as I said, I'm preparing us for the 2027 elections. I've already started putting those plans in place for, how we're going to run that election, where we're going to be fielding candidates across South West Essex. I think there's a lot to play for still, and I'm still very much invested in Basildon.